Today we're going to talk about billionaire habits. What do the most successful people think about, feel energetically as themselves every day, and what are the things that the most successful people are doing? If I want to make sure that I have certain habits that create this billionaire lifestyle for me, then I understand that certain habits are created by the ideas in the mind first, because the body simply follows the mind. The body is an instrument of the mind, but I have this other habit. Most successful people will do. They will ask themselves, how can I be 1% better today than I was yesterday? The last habit that I think is going to be the best one that I'm going to give you today is to... Welcome back to the Manifested Podcast with Kathleen Cameron. Today we're going to talk about billionaire habits, and that sounds rather masculine and rather mechanical. So I'm going to talk about habits with you and behaviors and things that you do in order to manifest billions of dollars into your life. But of course, I'm going to do it in the Kathleen way and in the feminine way and take you back to your spiritual essence first. And so in order for you to tap into that billionaire version of yourself, it's so important for you to tap into the God within first. And so for me, I understand that source energy, God, creator, universe, infinite intelligence, whatever language you want to use to describe that, we are talking about an energy that is the all of everything. It is in everything. Everything is made by it, and all of us are a part of it. And so the all of everything then is the direct source to where these billions of dollars you desire are going to come from. And so the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we understand and perceive our oneness. And many people ask me, okay, well, how do I connect to the source within? How do I connect to our creator? You're already connected. So the belief that I would want you to have is that you are connected to your creator. Whatever language you use, the God of your understanding, what I want you to truly believe is that there is a higher power, there is a supportive mechanism, that you are guided, you are supported, that you are not alone in your manifestation journey. And so if you want billions of dollars and you think that you're alone doing it with your bare hands, that feels like a lot of work. Sounds even harder than climbing Mount Everest might feel for some. So truly, the belief that you are connected and that you cannot be disconnected is a beautiful belief that I would hold, which then will create certain habits for you. One of the things that I like to do every single morning as soon as I wake up is I like to perceive my oneness. So there might be things that happened the day before that disconnected me a little bit from the feeling of God, but it didn't disconnect me from God. Notice how I said the feeling of, but didn't disconnect me from. And so it's just a shift in focus. It's just a shift in attention and a shift in an awareness of your true essence. I like to call it the God essence within. I don't know where this came from, but lately I've been saying that. I want to perceive my God essence the first thing when I wake up in the morning. And so that might be gratitude. It might be joy. It might be a prayer. It might be a visualization. It might be actually speaking to the God essence within. It might be a conversation to myself. But what I'm really wanting to do is just to feel that connection, to perceive it. And so I always start my day with that. Sometimes what happens throughout the day is that we start to get busy and we start to get into our human experience and perspective. And we sometimes no longer view the world through our spiritual awareness, but through our human awareness. And that's okay. We see through both lenses. But I want to make sure that when I begin the day that I'm starting off in that spiritual lens. Neville Goddard has a beautiful book called Out of This World. And in that book, he says something very profound. He talks about how all of us are experiencing life based on our observation, and we're experiencing life based on which lens we are looking at the world through. And so most people prior to their awakening, prior to the realization of who and what they really are living their life through the human mind, the human lens, or through the carnal mind. And so that lens tends to lean towards anything that you observe with the senses. So all of the things that you can see, taste, touch, etc. And so when you're looking at the world through this lens, it tends to involve a lot of judgment. It tends to involve displeasure. It tends to involve beliefs that are limited and things like that. And so I actually call this like an unproductive use of the ego mind. So looking at the world through this lens, through that ego lens, from the human mind lens, then when you understand that that is why you are limited, you understand that that's not where the billions are going to come from. The billions are going to come from you living your life through both lenses. So the ability to then jump into this other lens that Neville talks about, he calls it the spiritual lens. He calls it the higher spiritual source lens. He even calls it the imaginative lens. Because for you to experience life through the imagination means that you are no longer living life according to what you see, but you're living life according to the truth of who and what you really are, which is something that you cannot see. And so to live from the imagination for the higher spiritual perspective says that what I'm seeing over here in this lens is limited, and the truth is in this other lens. So what I'm actually telling you is a habit that I have developed in my life to allow me to manifest all of the things, not just money, but all of the things, is the ability to go between the two lenses, to live in both the human lens and the higher spiritual lens and the imaginative lens, and to be able to bounce through both of them and to see life differently. You're limited by living through that carnal mind, and you expand and you grow through the higher spiritual lens or the higher spiritual mind. And so that is something I would absolutely practice. That's something that I would have as a habit of being able to hop back up to the higher spiritual perspective. A little trick, because I know you're going to ask me, well, what do you mean by that? How do we do that? So a little trick, what I do then is when I notice that I'm in my one lens and I'm viewing the world through observation and through judgment, I will be aware of it and I will notice it. I'll be like, ooh, I'm in my human right now. This is great. And then I will say, okay, so what would the higher spiritual perspective see? What would the higher spiritual perspective feel about this right now? What would be the way in which I would perceive the situation if I were looking at it through God's eyes? What would the situation look like if I was looking at it through potentiality instead of limitation? That's the difference. And what I will often ask too is, how can I look at this in a loving perspective? Because love is God. And so when you allow yourself to see from the loving perspective, you've now hopped out of the ego mind, out of the human experience, the human lens, the carnal lens, and you're back up in that higher spiritual lens. That will mean, though, that you will have to drop the ego oftentimes. So that means that you're going to have to be okay with not being right and not being able to prove yourself and not needing accolades and recognition and not needing people to give you a pat on the back and not needing someone to tell you that they're grateful for you, simply knowing that they are. It's going to mean unconditional love and acceptance for yourself and for others. That's the higher spiritual lens. So that is a habit that I have developed in my life, is to start my day in the spiritual lens, to feel and perceive my oneness, and then throughout the day to make sure I'm flipping between those two lenses when appropriate. Because it is appropriate to be in the human lens. It's not a bad thing. We want to live our life and we want to be present, but we want to make sure that the next moment is created by that spiritual perspective and not recreating the same human moment that we just had. I hope that makes sense. I know it's a little bit of a deeper thought as we begin to talk about habits. So now that I've talked about that higher spiritual perspective, then we go back into the mind. We go back into the software that's in there and we ask, okay, so if I want to make sure that I have certain habits that create this billionaire lifestyle for me, then I understand that these certain habits are created by the ideas in the mind first, because the body simply follows the mind. The body is an instrument of the mind. Whatever the mind tells it to do, the body does. And the body will automatically do things, but they're still programmed and patterned by the mind to automatically do them. So then we say, so what is the best belief for me to have today? What is the best identity is it for me to believe in who I am today? How can I show up today as my grandest version of myself? So I'm very open with all of you about my identity work that I do and the consciousnesses that I'm creating and that I'm rising up into. And the next consciousness that I've created is KCB. And I truly do believe now that I operate as her every single day. I believe that it's becoming natural, effortless, and easy for me to show up as that most empowered version of myself. And so I wrote her out, I mapped her out, I feel her, I know what she's like. So now every day the habit is to be her. And so some people will be like, oh, Kathleen, that sounds so easy. You have a habit of being her. Yes, I do. And that's one of the things that I make sure that I do every single day. My responsibilities are to show up every single day and get dressed. But then my responsibilities are to show up every single day as the grandest version. If I continue to show up as the past version of myself, a limited version, someone who hasn't achieved as much, that doesn't love as much, who isn't as abundantly prosperous in her thinking as this new version of me is, then I'm going to manifest that old version, and I will be in resistance to the billionaire version of myself that I desire to be. So when I created KCB, and I created a habit of being KCB, it becomes a pattern and a program in my life. I went to Starbucks this morning, as I do most days, and they ask me what my name is. And I tell them KCB, letter K, letter C, letter B. It's a habit now. And when I talk about myself on social media platforms, I sign off KCB. When you get a book signed by me, I write only love, KCB. It's a habit of showing up as that version of myself every day. Yes, I started off practicing being her, not acting as if, but practicing being her. And then now it is a natural way of being for me to show up as KCB every single day. In 2022, I decided to become a non-drinker. And throughout my life, I had been celebrating and drinking lots of beautiful champagne and all those incredible things. And I stopped drinking. And it's now been 2.5 years, but I am so excited to partner with this beautiful brand, this beautiful company, Ilia. It is a premium rosé non-alcoholic sparkling. And I am so pumped because as we manifest and as we celebrate, we have a beautiful opportunity to do it for those of us that are now non-drinkers. And one of the most powerful things about this as well is the beauty of this brand. It's so luxurious and so wonderful, from Spain, but the creator is also in this material, and she studies, and she is a very, very powerful manifester. So to our growth and success, and to Ilia. But I have this other habit, and it is a habit that most successful people will do. They will ask themselves, how can I be better today than I was yesterday? How can I be 1% better today than I was yesterday? And it doesn't come from judgment. It doesn't come from believing yesterday I messed up, I screwed up, yesterday was awful, I didn't do a good job. I give myself compassion, I give myself grace, I give myself love, and I ask the question, how can I be 1% better today? And so 1% better might be that I'm going to be 1% happier today. 1% better might be I'm going to exist in a more grateful state today. I'm going to love a little bit more today. I'm going to let go of fear, just like 1% of that fear, I'm just going to let it go today than yesterday. It might be I'm going to worry less today. I'm going to rest today. I'm going to take care of myself today. I'm going to do a few extra steps today. Whatever that is for you, it's about just making that decision and having the habit to better yourself. For much of my life, it wasn't about bettering myself, and it wasn't about self-improvement. It was about working harder and like doing more and being more productive. And so I would have said to you, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if you had asked me this habits question about being a billionaire, I would have said, wake up and go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning every single day. Read 15 minutes a day of a personal growth and development book. I would have said, get my 10,000 steps in, drink lots of water, work 8 hours a day, and then come home and check my email for 2 extra hours every single day. And it would have been like clean the house and do my laundry. And it would have been a list of to-dos. Those would have been the habits. But see how I'm not taking you there. I'm actually taking you to spirit. I'm taking you to the intellectual mind before I get into what to do. Many of you have probably heard this before, that we're human beings and not human doings. And that's such a beautiful thing, because so many of us are in the doing of life that we're forgetting about the being. And so to be present and to be self-aware and to choose growth and to choose betterment, it's not how much harder can I work today? That's not what I'm talking about here. It's how much more can I be an amplified version of my true self today? How can I let spirit speak through me more today? How can I guide and direct source energy more today? How can I spread more love today? How can I impact more people today? How can I love myself more today? I think if you want to be a billionaire, you got to tap into some major parts of self-love within yourself, because it's going to take a version of you that isn't quite there yet. And you're going to need to love yourself along the entire journey. That's what I truly believe. So now we've gone spirit. Now we're talking about the intellectual mind. We're talking about habits related to who you're being and how you're showing up. And then let's go back into this body now. So if we want to look at this and we want to say, okay, in order for me to be a very successful individual, somebody who does more in their lifetime than the average person. So if you're looking at a podcast on how to become a billionaire, you're already above and beyond what the average person is thinking about. The average person isn't asking, how do I be a billionaire in my lifetime? The average person is thinking much, much smaller than that. So kudos to you for searching up this episode and listening. But what that means is because you are thinking at that level, you are going to need to think about then, what do the most successful people think about? What do the most successful people feel energetically as themselves every day? And what are the things that the most successful people are doing that the unsuccessful ones, no judgment, unsuccessful ones are doing or not doing? There is an article called The Common Denominator of Success. You can probably just Google that and you will find it. And don't ask me the author because I'm not sure. But one of the things that's really profound in that article is that he talks about that successful people are willing to do what most people are not. And so we're not talking about sacrifice. We're not talking about hustling harder. We're not talking about 16-hour days, because the average person works a lot. The average person works a lot of days. The average person is stressed and overwhelmed. The average person is quite burnt out. So we're not actually talking about that. We're actually talking about something completely different. We're talking about doing things that the average person would not do, making decisions the average person would not make, taking risks the average person would not make, being bolder than the average person is, being more confident than the average person, loving themselves more than the average person, believing in themselves more than the average person. So I would say that those are the things, the habits that you want to start to possess. But there's other things as well that we know correlate to impact. And I say impact because for me, I always put profit behind impact. I want to impact more people, knowing that the profit will follow or the exchange will follow. So in order for me to impact more people, what do I need to do? What are some of the things that I need to do to be able to impact more people? I need to be consistent, I need to be committed, and I need to be disciplined. So what that means is that when I decide something, I commit to the decision. I'm not changing my mind. The decision is made, it is done. And then I tap into discipline. So once I've made a committed decision, I want to be disciplined. Disciplined is giving yourself a command and following it. So it's saying that you're going to go to the gym the next day and waking up and going to the gym the next day. The old version of me, I'd be like on Monday, and then Monday would come around and be like, okay, next Monday. And it would just never happen because there was no discipline. And I didn't make a committed decision. So therefore the discipline wouldn't follow. And the last thing is consistency. This has been so beautiful to watch. My physical transformation over the past 3 years has been the most beautiful physical representation of consistency that I've ever seen in my life, I must admit. Now, it's the same thing with my bank account, but you all can't see that, but you can see my physical appearance. And so for 3 years, I have been consistent in loving myself, fueling my body nutritiously while still enjoying some goods. I still enjoy some sweets. Like, I am not measuring anything. I'm not counting macros. I'm not depriving myself. I'm not on a diet. I worked with a nutritionist to educate myself on what foods are better for me and what foods have the highest vitamins and minerals and anti-inflammatory properties. And I've researched supplementation and what supplements I should take and things like that. But no diet, no, I don't count calories or macros. I don't measure my food. I am just living very, very intuitively, but fueling my body nutritiously. So I've been consistent with that. Consistent in getting a good night's sleep. Consistent in drinking a lot of water. And consistency in physical activity and movement. And so in 3 years, I just bought this is still blowing my mind because I don't think I've ever worn this size before in my life. I just bought a size 12 jeans the other day, and I was a size 22 jeans in 2022, actually. So to go from a size 22 to a size 12 in 3 years through consistency. But the other thing is also my ability to run now. I run 7 kilometers in an hour where I couldn't even go up a flight of stairs without being out of breath in 2022 after my lung surgery. So Life is very, very different through consistency. And so consistency says that I'm going to do the same things on a regular basis over time, and that consistency will add up. And in this case, it did add up. And some people will say, okay, Kathleen, well, you've shrunk your body. Congratulations for losing weight or releasing weight. And I say, oh, no, no, no. But what you can't see is that I've expanded. I haven't shrunk myself down at all. I've expanded the capacity to be an elevated version of myself through consistency, being committed, and through discipline. And it's the same thing in your business. You know, those small things, they really do add up. But you must first be in the higher spiritual perspective, reprogram the identity and the self-concept, and then those behaviors of commitment, discipline, and consistency, they show up naturally if you're doing the other things that I talked about. The last tip that I will give you, the last habit that I think is going to be the best one that I'm going to give you today, is to make it a habit to live in certainty and to remain in that certainty. The world is not a certain place. We can't control everything that happens all around us, especially we're surrounded by other people who have free will. And so the certainty isn't to try to be certain of the outside world and control it, but to be certain of you and to be certain of what you believe in and to be certain of the vision that's unfolding. So you're listening to a podcast on how to have habits to be a billionaire. Well, I would recommend highly that you are certain in your ability to be one and that you act on that certainty every single day habitually. And if you do that, it's inevitable because it's universal law. So it's by law. I appreciate you listening to these beautiful habits related to becoming a billionaire. We are on the same path and the same journey, and anything I can do, you can do, because we are all one. So I appreciate you listening. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. And remember that the limit does not exist.